Hello, everyone, and welcome. Every single day, you handle student records, but have you ever really stopped to think about the critical role you play in protecting all that sensitive information? Well, in this explainer, we're going to see just how vital your work truly is.
Think about it. From the moment a new student enrolls, you're not just shuffling papers or clicking a mouse. You are safeguarding the story of their entire education. And protecting that story, well, that's a huge responsibility, and it's one we're going to explore together.
So today, we're going to go on that journey. We'll actually follow a single student record from its birth, the moment it's created, through its very active life here in the school, and all the way to its secure retirement. You're going to see exactly where you fit in and why your diligence is just so crucial.
All right, let's start with the big picture. I want you to think of yourselves not just as office staff, but as the frontline guardians of student privacy. I mean it. This isn't just about following school policy. It's a profound legal and ethical responsibility.
Now, this quote from the Utah Government Data Privacy Act, it might sound a little formal, but it gets right to the heart of the matter. Privacy is a fundamental interest. When parents entrust us with their child's data, they have a legal expectation that we're going to protect it. This idea is the absolute bedrock of everything we do.
Okay, so to live up to that responsibility, we all need to be speaking the same language. Let's start at the very beginning, the birth of a record. Let's define what we're actually talking about here.
First up, what exactly is an education record? Well, according to the big federal law known as FERPA, the definition is pretty broad. It covers just about any material, whether it's digital or a piece of paper, that has information directly related to a student and is kept by the school. So, we're talking grades, attendance, discipline notes, health info, you name it.
Now let's get a little more specific. Personally identifiable student data. This is any piece of information that could be used to identify a specific student. You've got the obvious stuff, right? A name, an address, a student ID number. But, and this is important, it also includes information that when you combine it with other pieces could point to one single individual. This is the data we have to be the most careful with.
And finally, this term is so important, the retention schedule. You can think of this as our official playbook. It's a formal, approved schedule that tells us exactly how long we are required to keep different types of records and what to do with them when that time is up. It's not a suggestion, folks. It is a mandate. Now, here's a really interesting distinction to make. We can't just collect any information we feel like. There's necessary data, things like a student's name and their grades that we need to run the school. But then there's optional data, which might be for a specific club or, say, an after-school program. For that stuff, we absolutely must get written parental consent before we collect a single piece of it.
So, the record has been created. It's official. Now it begins its active life. And during this phase, it's going to be stored, accessed, and sometimes even shared. So let's take a look at the very strict rules that govern who gets to see this information. The cornerstone of all student privacy is FERPA. This law gives parents specific, powerful rights. They have the right to see their child's records, they have the right to ask for corrections if they find mistakes, and most importantly, they are the ones who control who outside the school gets to see that information. Our job is to facilitate and protect every single one of those rights.
And FERPA gives us a hard deadline for this. It's called the 45-day rule. When a parent puts in a request to see their child's records, a clock starts ticking. You have what's called a reasonable period to get them the information, but that period can never be more than 45 days. Being prompt and organized is absolutely key to meeting this legal requirement.
This is a question you'll probably face all the time. You know, a parent's written consent is the default. It's the gold standard. But are there exceptions? Are there times when we can share information without getting that piece of paper first?
Well, the answer is yes, but the exceptions are very specific and legally defined. For instance, other school officials who have a legitimate educational interest can have access. We can also share records with a student's new school if they're transferring, or for things like financial aid, or if we get a court order. And this one is critical. In a health or safety emergency, we can disclose information to protect the student or other people.
All right, we have now reached the final stage in a record's journey. It's retirement. And this part is just as important as its creation and its active life. We have to know exactly how long to keep these records, and, crucially, how to get rid of them securely when their time is up.
And this table perfectly illustrates how that retention schedule works in the real world. This isn't guesswork. It's a formal plan. And just look at the differences. Attendance rolls, we keep those for 1 year, then they're destroyed. But a student's transcript, that's kept for 40 years after they leave, and then becomes a permanent record in the archives. Every type of record has its own specific lifespan.
And it is so important to understand this. Once a record's retention period is over, we can't just toss it in the recycling bin. Secure disposal, and that means shredding for paper or permanent digital deletion, is absolutely mandatory. This final step is a non-negotiable part of protecting student privacy.
So, the rules and schedules are the what. Now, let's talk about the how. You see, protecting student data isn't just about following a checklist. It's about building a true culture of privacy through our daily habits and our professional mindset.
This quote says it all, doesn't it? We have to treat student information with the same level of confidentiality that a doctor or a lawyer treats their client's information. It's a professional confidence. And that means creating what I like to call a cone of silence around this sensitive data.
So, what does this cone of silence actually look like in practice, day to day? Well, it all comes down to simple, conscious habits. Not discussing a student's situation in the hallway. Angling your computer screen away from public view. Never, ever, ever sharing your password. Always logging out when you step away. And if you even suspect a data breach, report it right away.
We've covered a lot today, but this has been an overview. Every local education agency, your LEA, has its own detailed data governance plan. That is your go-to resource. And if you ever have a question or a doubt, your designated student data manager is the person to ask. Make sure you know who that person is.
So we're going to end with this question. As you go about the rest of your day, think about your daily routines. What is one small, concrete habit you can change starting tomorrow to become an even better guardian of our students' privacy? Thank you for your time, and thank you for your commitment to this incredibly important work.